If a real relationship is what you want, then it's time to get real about what you really want, what the person you're interested in really has to offer, and what in your own self needs to be healed so that you can stop making the same relationship mistakes over and over again. Real relationships involve pain and loss sometimes. You can get rejected. You could be deceived. You could end up settling for less than you really want. You could end up in a bad situation and feel stuck there. Now, these are real stakes, and they can easily come into play when you dodge some of the responsibility and courage required to show up, be vulnerable, and let another person get to know you enough to maybe fall in love with you. Now, none of that can happen when you hide how you feel, remaining separate, apart from the person you're in love with, and pouring all that emotional energy into a fantasy version of how things could be with them. I'm not just talking about imagining a romance with someone who's not in a relationship with you. I'm talking about the kind of one-sided romance where the intensity of your feelings and your vision of the potential of the relationship is just going up like here, and you're so tuned into every sign they give you that they might feel the same way, but your communication and openness about the nature of your feelings is way down here. You're hiding what a big deal they are to you, or hiding the fact that you're interested romantically, or you're pretending to be just friends. Not only do healthy people not find this kind of hiding attractive, but it can absolutely hollow out your actual life. You end up alone. All that energy is going basically into like nothing, into air. That's what a fantasy is. A place in your mind that you keep locked up so you don't have to face what's real. Nothing can be built in a fantasy relationship. Nothing can deepen, and no one is there for you at the end of the day, which is the very thing that made you afraid to face what's real in the first place. Fear that you would end up being rejected, so you end up sacrificing the possibility of being with anyone. If real love is what you want, it's important to own that, to spot fantasy energy when it's happening and shine the light of day on it, to come back to your real self and do good things there to make real love possible. All right, I got a letter the other day from someone I'll call Jim, and he writes, "Hi Anna, I grew up very emotionally neglected by both parents. I grew up in a two-parent home, middle class, and never lacked for any physical needs. However, my emotional needs as a child were never met or cared for. I have memories that go back to age 3, but I have not a single memory of either my mother or father telling me they loved me or even giving me a hug. This becomes significant." Okay. I was also the oldest of 4 and was often in a situation where I was babysitting or taking care of my 3 younger siblings. My father worked 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, so was absent a lot. I also became the emotional parent with my mother as I took on the role of regulating my mother's emotions rather than her helping me with mine. I hid my emotions and needs, and my primary goal each day was, "Don't stress out, Mom." I was always on guard, hiding my own emotions and managing things so she would not get upset. It is only within the past year that I've realized a lot of this. I've learned how my childhood has affected my adult life in many ways, including my relationships. I'm 41 years old, divorced, single, with 2 kids. There were different issues in my marriage, but I can recognize now how I was not emotionally available throughout. See, I circle because I'm going to come back and read it again, and we'll talk about what you said here, Jim. I had a 4-year relationship after my divorce, but that also ended up not working out. I have a full-time job running a group home for teenagers and a part-time job as staff at a youth center. I also volunteer at 2 other youth group programs. I have 2 kids of my own, ages 11 and 9, and I always have at least one of them with me, so I'm a full-time single dad, not to mention managing my own house. I love my jobs, what I do, and I love my kids and the time I get with them, but my time is pretty filled up, and I don't have much room for a relationship on top of everything else. I get pretty lonely at times being single. I desperately want a relationship and someone to spend my life with. I've been single now for 2.5 years. On to my current issues with limerence. Over the summer, my youth center did our week-long summer camp for teens. I do it every year and love it. Some adult leaders from the other youth group programs were there to help. One of them being a beautiful young woman who I met there on the first day. Throughout the week, we spent a good bit of time around each other during the various activities. We also had some good interactions and conversations, talking and laughing. I felt like we connected in some ways throughout the week. A week like that is a bonding experience anyway among a staff team due to the shared mission of our experience. But I found myself really liking her and putting in effort to be in situations with her. She displays all the qualities I would look for in a woman and was also there involved in something that I find important and love doing. It made sense that I would be attracted to her and would like her. She is younger, 28 years old, never married, no kids, which all immediately made me pause and figure she would never go for someone like me. It's not like I'm out searching for younger women. I just happened to meet her, and she has all these wonderful qualities that I'm attracted to. I also don't meet women much in my regular routine. Running a group home with all-male staff and working with teenagers doesn't lead to many opportunities to meet available women. After the week of camp ended, I could not stop thinking about her. I desperately missed being around her. I connected with her on social media and sent her a message, just a hey, it was great to have you there and it was great to meet you kind of message to get a conversation going. We sent a couple of messages back and forth casually, and then she stopped responding and never even read my final message. I knew I couldn't bombard her with more messages, so I left it at that. I felt crushed that she stopped responding and that she obviously did not want to communicate with me as much as I did her. I wanted to keep a connection going, and it hurt a lot to come to a realization that she did not feel the same. If she had, she would have kept talking. I continued to keep thinking and obsessing about her, crying at times because I did not have the connection with her that I wanted. She just seems like the perfect person for me. I started volunteering at the same youth group location where she volunteers. I got to be around her a bit there, but sometimes would find myself getting nervous, worried about what to say, then leaving and not even talking to her. Those times would lead me to feeling completely crushed that night. However, on a couple occasions, I did talk to her, and we would have a good conversation catching up with each other. Those times would lead to a huge high feeling of hope and happiness. After a couple of months of just hoping to be around her and maybe connect more through conversation, I was scrolling through social media and saw a post of her in a relationship, a seemingly brand new one. It just emotionally devastated me. Then only a month later, scrolling through again, I see a post of her getting engaged, the actual video of it happening. I was completely crushed again. She must have been dating him for a while and no one in my circle realized. I had already known she wasn't interested in me because of the lack of response or reaching out to me past the short conversations we would sometimes have, but I still had hope in my head. To see her engagement was very hard. It's still fresh and I'm thinking about her a lot. She's amazing and has all the qualities I think I want. From what I've learned about limerence, says Jim, it seems like this is what has been going on with me. This is not the first time I've gotten this way over a woman I was interested in. What I'm wondering is this really limerence or is this normal feelings? Are these normal feelings from meeting someone you're attracted to, someone you're interested in? How do I know the difference? I don't want to shut down my feelings, but I also don't want to have unhealthy obsessions or get too caught up and hurt more. How do I control it? It's so difficult to pull myself out of those low times, the sadness and the depression and the loneliness. I want to feel falling in love with someone. I want to feel all the good feelings that come with that, but I also don't want to keep feeling what I'm feeling right now. I'm also worried that I didn't even know what a good and healthy loving relationship feels like. I want to love and be loved and haven't had that in my life. I also worry at times that maybe I focus too much on the obsessions and may miss something else good. The situation has really caused me a lot of heartache over the last several months. All right, from Jim. Oh, Jim, that's a hard spot to be in. I think a lot of people here can relate. I know I can. And I'm going to go through your letter now again and highlight what I learned about you and what I can suggest to you based on what you wrote, okay? So you grew up emotionally neglected by both parents. And what you're going through now really matches that, okay? You grew up in a two-parent home, middle class, never lacked for any physical needs. Just goes to show that's not everything. However, your emotional needs were never met or cared for. You said, I have memories that go back to age 3, but I have not a single memory of either of my mother or father telling me they loved me or giving me a hug. All right, that right there's a reference for us. That kind of matches what you're describing about your adult relationships. So there we can zero in on what you're missing. What you may be missing is just that baseline foundation of knowing what that feeling is so that you can recognize it and not settle for less, all right? So let's go through. I was also the oldest of 4, was often in a situation where you were babysitting or taking care of younger siblings. Interesting that you did that, and now you work in youth homes. I think your work is noble and real and everything, but it's just interesting, the caretaker of young people. Your dad worked 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, so was absent a lot. And I thought that was interesting because it sounds like you're never home, and we're going to get there. You had to become the emotional parent with your mother and take on the role of regulating her emotions rather than her helping me with mine. So I'm thinking in group homes, that's where that skill is coming in handy. So, interesting resonance between then and now. And not easy, like just knowing how to take care of somebody rather than be loved. I hid my emotions and needs, and my primary goal each day was don't stress out, Mom. So I hid my emotions and needs, and there it is. There it is. Let's just shine a big bright light on that. I hid my emotions and needs because that's what I think is going on right now. You were always on guard. You were hiding emotions, managing things so she would not get upset. And it's only within the past year or so that you've realized a lot of this. Yay! Realizing it is half the battle, and here you are working on it, so good for you. You're 41, you're divorced, single with 2 kids. They're 11 and 9. What a precious age that is. Very formative for them, the relationship that you have with them. And you recognize that in your marriage, which is over, you see that you were not emotionally available. So I'm not sure, you don't really go into that, but you were not emotionally available. So being emotionally available is a super important thing for a relationship. This is your call to action now, that your job now is to start to learn to be emotionally available. And I'll tell you a couple things you can do to get started on that as we go through this, okay? But emotional availability is so important. So it's good you recognize that you hadn't done that. Then you had a 4-year relationship after your divorce, but that didn't work out. You didn't really comment on why. But I'm going to guess that it had to do with you hiding emotions and needs and not being emotionally available. So you have a full-time job running a group home for teenagers and a part-time job as staff at a youth center. Okay, so that's 1.5 jobs. You also volunteer at 2 other youth group programs, and you have 2 kids, 11 and 9, and one of them is always with you, so you're a full-time dad. Okay, so Jim, I'm calling you out. If you're doing a full-time job, a part-time job, and 2 volunteer jobs, when are you with your kids? When are you emotionally available to them? I really seldom really get in people's faces with stuff, but I just want to say, the volunteer jobs, I'm not hearing why they're important. I get that this woman that you were into worked at one, and we'll talk about that. But just for the sake of the kids, I think having been a single parent for 9 years of my mom years, I split from their dad when they were 1 and 4, not by choice, but it was for the best, and then remarried more recently, so there were 9 years I was not married. So I know how hard it is. And I know that a person who's being a single parent needs time when they're with adults, needs time when they're enriching their lives. Of course, everybody needs that. And you may need to go on dates and all that. So you need some time that's not in the full-time job. And I'm assuming, you haven't said otherwise, that you're splitting custody with their mom. So there's nights when she has them, but for some reason you have this arrangement where one of them is always with you. So that's interesting. I don't know why that is. Maybe that's necessity. But if they could be together, then you would have nights free for volunteering. But otherwise, kids are always at home without you. So that kind of, to me, I'm like, whoa, what's going on with all that? Where are you? Emotional availability to your kids is the most important kind of emotional availability you can do right now. And I think you'll be surprised how rich your life gets when you have those more connection with your kids, which can only be gained through time with your kids. And that the pressure to find romance, I mean, it's real, and I totally hope you find that for yourself. But once you're a parent, like, that has to go at a certain slower pace, and it needs to be kept farther away from home, because that relationship with the kids is sacrosanct. It has to be protected. So that's what I just want to say, is that quality time with your kids. I hate that word quality time. That's like what busy people do to pretend they're there. Like, really, really being close to your kids is going to be a powerful antidote to the loneliness you feel. And yeah, it's not the same as a partner, but it's more important than a partner right now. And when you do meet a good person who is partner material, you having a good relationship with your kids is going to be an absolute good thing for all four of you, the kids, you, and this new partner. Having a peaceful life, having loving relationships in the right order, that's top line order, is kids first. Having that in order is going to first signal to a healthy woman one day that you're a good guy. That's what a good guy does. And I just know, like, being too busy all the time, it's a strategy to avoid pain and to avoid loneliness. And anything that we do to avoid, it's basically, it's kind of the same thing as doing a drug or something. We don't develop during that time. The time that you're caring for kids or all by yourself is time when you can bring into your awareness those parts of yourself that still need healing, rather than running from it all the time. That's how we can stay stuck in a developmental delay. And I use the word developmental delay for what childhood PTSD can do to us. And healing means the delay ends and we start developing. We move forward in life. So I encourage you to have more time alone and less time working. I'm sure money is an issue. This isn't high-paid work you're talking about, but the volunteering doesn't pay anything. So there you have that. So you say, yeah, your time is pretty filled up and you don't have much room for a relationship on top of everything else. This is true. And you get pretty lonely. It's been 2.5 years, and I know that's hard. And I remember being in the same boat, and it felt so important to meet somebody. Looking back, though, with my retrospecto goggles, that the time with the kids is the most memorable time. The dates I went on, or worrying about relationships, is totally water under the bridge. When I did get enough healing done that a really good relationship could fall into place, first of all, he didn't even meet the kids for a year. They didn't meet him, because I didn't want to bring relationship problems or somebody who was going to come and go out of their life into their life one more time. And so that's another thing I would recommend to you, is that when you do date, and we're going to get to this situation at hand, but I just want to say, when you do date, take it real slow. Okay. I'm going to talk about reality, the reality of dating as a single parent, because that's what this video is about getting real with yourself and what you really need. All right, so over the summer, your youth center did a week-long summer camp for teens. You do it every year. You love it. It sounds like incredible fun. Some adult leaders from other youth group programs were there to help, and one of them was this beautiful young woman. And you talked to her, you got to know her, you laughed. There was a meaningful connection because you both are on this, common mission to serve teenagers and make life better for them, which is great. And a week like that is a bonding experience. I get it. I get why you would really be able to connect closely with somebody in that situation. So that's all good. And then you say she displays all the qualities that I would look for in a woman, all except one. So it made sense to be attracted. She's 28, you're 41. That's not a deal-breaking age difference. It's definitely notable, and you know that. And you being a single dad, and she's never married. It's, she's at an age where there's a high probability she would want more kids. So there may be, there's a lot of stuff that would be worked out through getting to know you with somebody if you were to date them, but it didn't ever progress to dating. So you thought she would never go for it. It's not what you were looking for, was a younger woman, but it just happened, and these things happen, and that's okay, and that's beautiful. Okay. After camp ended, you couldn't stop thinking about her, you desperately missed her, and you wrote to her on social media, okay? And you said hey, it was just great to meet you, kind of message to get the conversation going. There were a couple messages, and then she stopped responding, and she never even read the final message. And that's kind of cryptic. I'm curious about what that was, but I knew I couldn't bombard her with more messages. Good call. That's true. There was no reciprocation. So you left it at that, but you felt crushed that she stopped responding and that she obviously didn't want to communicate as much. And you wanted to keep the connection going, and it hurt a lot to come to the realization that she didn't feel the same. And if she had, she would have kept talking. Right on. Good. You're reading the signals correctly. You did something right here. You got it resolved fairly quickly. You did it passively, not by actually like talking to her about how you felt. But at least it was only a couple of messages. But I think there was a lack of completion here and this devastation that you feel. So you say you continue to think about and obsessing on her. So yeah, obsessing happens when there's no sunshine on it, when you're staying in a non-real fantasy version of the relationship rather than the real one. The real one is painful because she didn't even return your messages. And so this is where we kind of split off, and part of us just continues to have a relationship with the idea of somebody, and that's very comforting to us, and it's this escape. And actually, as a former single parent, I totally understand the desire to escape. I don't think you're a bad person, but I'm just here to kind of help shake you out of this now so that you can get on with having a real relationship, all right? And you keep saying she just seems like the perfect person for you, and you put that in present tense. I'll tell you why she's not the perfect person for you, not even close, is she has a boyfriend, all right? Your perfect person is single, available, and in love with you. That's your perfect person. And anybody who doesn't meet those criteria is a terrible person for you. They're just not good at all right? So first, I'm just going to come in here and say the thing, the elephant in the room. She's not the perfect person for you. She's a terrible person for you. It's totally because of something you know about her, right? So then you say, after finding this out, you started volunteering at the same youth group location where she volunteers. That's why I was going on and on about the kids, all right? Second volunteer gig. I just do not feel from what you've told me you have time for this. And she's already she's not interested in you. So this is where I kind of saw the CPTSD behavior of yours. Everything else, I'm like, no, I get it. But where you volunteer with somebody who rejected you is where your CPTSD got control of the steering wheel of your life. All right, and you get to be around her there, and then you get to talk to her, and you're nervous, and sometimes she talks, and sometimes not, and good conversation, and then you'd get a high if she did talk to you. All right, so that's you in limerence. That's you doing the drug of limerence, of going and like wasting your precious time at another volunteer gig, like you have full-time job, part-time job, volunteer gig, now another volunteer gig to be around someone who rejected you. I'm just driving it home here. This is not a good idea, and she's not the perfect person. So a really good thing happened in my opinion, and it's that you were looking at her stuff on social media, and you saw she's in a relationship, and it devastated you, but that was a good thing to happen. Like, it burst your bubble. You having your heart broken by realizing she's in a relationship was you coming to Earth. Earth is a good place to be for you, okay? Earth is where all real love is and where the women are who might fall in love with you. Fantasy is where nothing is. You can keep like putting your thoughts on it, but it never gives you anything back, all right? So that's why I say, I'm glad you had that painful experience of that, and then further you saw that she got engaged, and you learned this had been going on the whole time. So what you have an opportunity to do here is think back about the interactions you had and how you were thinking, searching for signs that she was maybe into you, which is what limerence is. You just like, maybe here, maybe that cryptic thing she said was really meant to say this, but where she was coming from was she had a boyfriend who was about to propose. She was probably thinking about that, excited about it, in love with him. And you were some guy that she worked with, and you were nice enough, and she talked to you. And then when she stopped responding to your messages means it started to feel weird. It's not just that she wasn't interested in it, but like she stopped being polite to you. And then she gave you another chance to be polite. Because what I'm guessing, Jim, is that you put on an act and pretended to be her friend. I'm just your friend. I'm like a guy at work. And this is what we do. This is what we do that makes us end up alone, and I want you to stop doing it. Do not pretend to be someone's friend. If somebody says, like, look, I'm not interested, then back off of them. And if you possibly can, stop having contact with them. And in this case, you can. This is a volunteer gig that you You're kind of stalking her a little bit there. So you can back this off and not have contact with her. This is what I want to say to you. You had to hide your needs and feelings so much that some weird kind of shame comes up in you when you have a crush on somebody. And a 41-year-old man having a crush on a woman is not a bad thing. Now, when you're at work, you might have to be subtle and cool about it, but once the work thing is over, the right thing to do if you want a relationship with them is to express it to them. Ask them out on a date. Just say, I don't know, I wasn't sure how you might feel about this, but getting to know you has been really nice, and I wanted to see if you want to get together sometime. That's what you do. That's how you honestly show up with your feelings of being interested to somebody. Now, if you had done this, she would have said, oh, I'm sorry, I don't feel that way at all. I have a boyfriend, it's a serious relationship. And you would have had that disappointing experience like nice and quick. And that's what we're all avoiding, right? When we pretend to be people's friends, when we're madly in love with them. That's what we're trying to avoid, is that inevitable, like it's going to be cut off if we are honest about how we feel. Because usually we know on some level the feeling isn't returned. And it's only through that, putting all that energy into the fantasy that we can kind of keep it going. But even if we have no idea how they feel, or we honestly believe they're interested, sunshine is a very good thing. And if someone's interested in you, they will welcome the news that you're interested. And if they're not interested, very important, again, like if you're in a work situation, like at the summer camp, that could be harassment. But once the whole thing is over, you can come out and be honest. And that is you being your full self. You're a grown man and you get to have feelings and you get to ask people out and express yourself. And the growth part for you is to start to have the experience of gracefully handling it when somebody says no. And we all have to learn how to do that. And I bet you've done it in all kinds of situations for work and, things that you've tried to do, wanted to get involved with, and probably dating. The fantasy can only be protected by avoiding that moment where you come out and show people how you really feel. And the fantasy starts to build up, so the stakes become so high against that rejection that's coming that you start to, put this false self out there. And I'm telling you, there is nothing less attractive than somebody going, oh yeah, I'm your buddy. And you feel that vibe from them. That's what creepy means, is somebody not being straightforward about how they feel. I guess there's ways of being creepy, creepy people who actually stalk and pursue. That's creepy. But that dishonesty where you're vibing somebody at being into them and then you're pretending to be their buddy, it's not trustworthy. And I want you, Jim, to have a totally straightforward, open-hearted, honest woman who becomes interested in you at the same time, or you ask her out, or maybe she suggests something, but let's say she hasn't realized she likes you yet, and you ask her, and she goes, oh, I don't know, and then you go, that's cool, well, maybe another time. You gracefully let people have a choice about whether to date you or not, and then we go home and we learn to deal with it. And that's why I spend so much time teaching my daily practice techniques, because those are the techniques that I use every day to deal with all the disappointments, all the embarrassment, all the rejections. There's just little things all day long that trigger us, that trigger hurt feelings or shame or old PTSD stuff. And we need a way to just keep kind of processing it out so we can be at peace at the end of the day. It's well, I tried. Well, I asked the person. I let them know how I feel. Okay, they weren't interested. Moving on. And that's how you move on. That's how you keep yourself emotionally available, not tied up in a fantasy, not with all your emotions completely unavailable to any real world woman who's looking for a relationship with a guy like you. So that's what it is. It's honesty, transparency, and appropriateness. And that's what I could see in you, that you got trained by your parents' situation to be ashamed of all your feelings and needs, that there's something wrong with it. And you have to pretend to be like Mr. Helpful. I just help people. I'm just so nice. I mentioned this in a video recently, but I read a really good book for men called No More Mr. Nice Guy. And it's a lot about that sort of codependent way of relating to women, of trying to be so nice to get their approval, and how it's not attractive and it never works. And I think you might love it. It's by Robert Glover. I'll put a link down below in the description section for anybody who wants that. I don't know him. I have actually sent an email inviting him, come on, Crappy Childhood Fairy. I talk about your book all the time. Maybe someday. If anybody knows him, tell him he should come on Crappy Childhood Fairy. But it's a good book. All right. So then you said from what you've learned about limerence, it seems like that's what's going on. Yes, I agree. This is not the first time you've gotten this way over a woman, and you were wondering, is it or is it normal? It's like, well, I think we all get a little gaga over people that we are in love with, and we all get a little embarrassed to admit it sometimes. So it's mostly normal. The part where you're holding on to it so long, that's the part that's limerence. And I don't want you to spend another day holding on to a relationship that you already know can't be. That's another day you can't be emotionally available and like out there meeting somebody great, all right? And it's another day that your emotional presence is missing from home with those kids of yours. And oh, you have an opportunity to give them that foundation of a loving and present dad who's really there for them and isn't just kind of spaced out and always kind of thinking of something that's not in the room. Right here in the room, helping with homework, disciplining, loving them, supporting them, showing up at their activities, helping them be on time, helping them discern good behavior, good decisions. This is your top priority, okay? So anything that takes you out of that is automatically like not good for you. What's good for the kids is good for you. All right. And with less volunteering and more focus on the kids and developing your emotional availability to them, I think you're going to have a different result next time you get a crush on somebody. And another opportunity will come. You're at a great age for this. You sound so, self-aware, and you make an effort, and you're a catch, and you can have this. But you got to get these like limerent stuff out of the way. It's just, it's like puncturing your own tires every day. It's not a good thing to do. So you don't want to shut down your feelings, but you got to shut down your feelings for this woman, and you can. So you say, I want to feel falling in love with someone. I want to feel all the good things that come with that. I want you to have that too. And I don't want you to have, just like you said, the part where you just find out like they never were, that they were like with somebody else the whole time. Only a CPTSD kid can go on that long not realizing that they're not getting something back. So that's what you can train yourself to do. I have a dating course. You might want to check it out. I'll put a link to it down below, and also a quiz that shows you common symptoms that childhood trauma might be affecting your dating life. But I teach very directly how you can detect an available versus an unavailable person and start to really identify like what's your pattern. Where is it that you sort of like a switch flips and you can't see it? Where does that happen, and how can you actually keep yourself like really grounded and seeing clearly what's going on? And I have distinct exercises for that. So you might want to check that out. I really encourage you, Jim, don't do this alone. It's so important to have people who care about you and know you, and you're talking honestly with them. And maybe you have that. You didn't mention this here, but like man friends would be very good for you to have, or maybe a 12-step fellowship of some kind with the men. It's, if you're somebody prone to limerence, it's really easy to kind of bring it with you everywhere you go. So for anybody listening, if you're thinking about going to a 12-step program to deal with limerence, maybe Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous or one of the other programs you qualify for, I would just really exhort you to get some boundaries around any kind of pursuit of romance in those programs. It's not a good place to do it, generally speaking. It can happen, but leave it. Like, just say for at least 1 year, all I'm going to do is get a sponsor and work this program, and I am not going to date here. And I've been around 12-step programs, and I'll just say, just many a person just goes down over that kind of thing. It always feels like if love came along, it would fix us. And it's true that what we need is love, but romantic love is kind of at the top of the pyramid, and we start with the other kinds of like, treating ourselves with love, treating our kids with love, treating our friends with love, treating the people in our lives who care about us with love, and developing those relationships, and then learning about the wound from our childhood trauma and learning to overcome it. I have this thing, the daily practice. Check that out. I just have all kinds of tools for people. That's what I do, is I help people have a way to calm their symptoms and be able to make good choices for themselves. It's so important, all right? That's how you're going to get love. And yeah, you've had a lot of heartache, and it's going to get better, Jim. So if anybody is relating about this, how to detect unavailable people, I've taken a video about this out of my dating course and shared it here on YouTube. It's broken into 2 parts. You can watch it if you want. I've got it set up right over here, both 1 and 2, and I will see you very soon.